Treat Lux your way with the Lux Cravings Boxes from Taco Bell. There's the classic $5 box, the indulgent $7 box, and a whole new obsession in the $9 box, the Flamin' Hot Grilled Cheese Burrito. Try the Lux Cravings Boxes at Taco Bell today.
Hey Bronco Nation, this is Boise State football wide receiver Ben Ford. I've had to face some setbacks on the field this past season, but toughness isn't about staying down. It's about getting back up. I am proud to represent Lithia Ford of Boise, where you can find the largest selection of Ford trucks that are built tough and, like me, handle the hits and keep pushing forward. Come check out the incredible inventory and competitive pricing at Lithia Ford of Boise. And when you buy here, you're not just getting a truck, you're supporting Boise State athletics and Lithia Ford NIL partnerships. Come see us at Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
Find your sun with Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea. Made with real iced tea and real vodka. Cold, refreshing, and made for moments like these all year long. Let the good times cruise with Sun Cruiser.
As sports fans, we may cheer for different teams, but there's one thing that we can all agree on. We want the game to be big. And with 3 levels, 30 cabanas, a 143-foot screen, 6 clean pools, and endless cold drinks, it doesn't get any bigger or any better than Stadium Swim in Las Vegas. All sports, all seasons. It's more than a pool deck. Stadium Swim. It's the only thing like it in the world.
Oh, and just like that, we're back. What's up, everybody? You're here on another night out west. I'm doing it from the East Coast. You guys are out west. Feels like I have not been gone very long. So less than a month after the season ends, we're back. I'm your host, Tom Moser. Thanks for being here. So a couple things. Let's just open up here and get some house cleaning stuff out of the way. Longtime viewers will notice that the Mountain West banner is no longer behind me. So we're getting a custom-made banner, poster, flag, whatever you want to call it, with multiple teams from multiple conferences, because yes, we're going to cover multiple conferences. So that was something that I said all along. I maintained right from the start when we did this, and would get asked often, what's your plan? What are you going to do? And look, I like the teams that were in our conference as the last few years played out, right? So felt bad, and I've expressed this in multiple platforms before, my pod, on here, elsewhere, that I there was really no clean way to do it, right? And so this was the best way, and I will say that I had to do zero twisting of BJ's arm. Okay, I know he gets a lot of crap from you guys, and that's fair because he supports Boise, and you guys for many different schools are rivals of Boise, and so BJ's an easy target, and he feeds into that a little bit. He knows he does, but he understands the same that I do, and that many fans across the conference do, that there are good fan bases and basketball programs in both schools, and they both deserve the coverage. And so, as I said before, I would like to find some way to make that work. And so here we are. So we're another night out west. That was just kind of a simple transition from another night in the Mountain West. We'll see if that's the title come November. Who knows? This just honestly came together really quickly. And as you can tell, that's why there's nothing behind me. I was a few minutes late. You guys know I'm pretty punctual. I like being on time. And so I started this one almost 10 minutes late. I had a computer issue, so I had to switch computers because the audio wasn't working. So that was a glitch. The banner on the screen here now, I couldn't get that one loaded up, and BJ's at a baseball thing for one of his 2 sons, so I had to kind of troubleshoot that at the last minute. And so I'm working out the kinks here after not being in rhythm like we were there in January, February, and March. And so we're just kind of, this came together just in the last few days. You saw when BJ sent the tweet out, I believe it was Friday, and then I commented on Friday, and really at the end of last week, he just kind of said, hey, do you want to do this? And let's get going. There's stuff to talk about. You can talk about it. We'll see what kind of engagement you get. Who knows how many people be watching, but why don't we give it a shot? And so, look, that's the climate that we're in today in college sports, obviously college basketball, where it's it's a 12-month sport now, maybe 11 months, I guess. You can probably take off in July, right? But aside from that, it's go, man, right? And so there's stuff to talk about. And what we should all realize too is that as great as the games are, okay, as great as it is on game night, it's only 30 to 35 games a season, 32 technically to 35, 36 games for our teams. And that's a whole lot of non-game nights, right? Now, yes, some of you guys can fill the void with football, and there's other things, of course, but there's more time that you spend talking about, debating, worrying, panicking, different stages of emotion that you go through with the way that our system is set up right now. And so you either get on board or you find something else to do. And that's what I've said before too, right? For all the fans out there that dislike the way the system is set up, you got to get used to it. Okay. You got to get used to it. And so there's people want to talk about this stuff. People like to, some people like to argue about everything. You could argue about the weather, but people like to talk about it. They like to debate it. They like the what ifs and the possibilities that could come from this, and tracking the visits of portal guys and all of the stuff that goes with that. Right. And so that's what we're going to do here. I have a list of things that I want to talk about. And of course, as I see the comments coming in already, which is fantastic, because you guys that have watched in the season know that's a big part of what I like doing, interacting with you guys. So certainly we'll hit that. I did want to, and this was another thing that we're going to implement here too later, in addition to some type of banner or poster behind, is maybe like a little sidebar here. If you guys are familiar with the old, I think they still have it on, I don't watch it anymore, but Pardon the Interruption, where they would have like the rundown on the side, maybe a little tab or something on the side of the screen that kind of goes over an order, if you will, of things that are going to be discussed on the show. And so most of it, of course, is going to revolve around player movement. Okay. And so I'm going to try not to fire like every bullet tonight, because we've missed 2 weeks of stuff. And so we'll talk about that. I'm going to save some things for next week, and so on. And then there'll be new stuff developing, of course, as there will be for the next who knows how long. Okay. And so the plan is to do this weekly on Sunday nights, 10 my time Eastern, 8 Mountain, 7 Pacific. Don't hold me to that, right? If there's a week in a month where there's zero developing, like everybody's committed and everything's done and it dies down and it's nothing really happened, maybe there's a Sunday night where I don't come in, right? If we get to June or July and it's a vacation week, maybe I'm not here, right? So the plan is for the next month to ish, go over portal, player movement, things like that, right? Once we get into those like early summer, late spring months, BJ and I have talked about reaching out and getting some coaches, getting some players, getting some interviews and some people on. We've had plenty of guests, media people, coaches, a few players during the season. So that's something that I'd be happy to do and get some guys on, whether that will be live or more of a tape thing and I could play it and then kind of talk about it after the fact. But that's something that we would look to do once the news cycle kind of dies down in the summer months before we get to the fall. Once we get to like September-ish, we'll see, if we want to continue it. A lot of you guys, again, will be into football and all that stuff. And then I'm sure once October comes and it's preseason time, we'll start doing the shows then. Again, probably just once a week before we get into game season, stuff like that. Now, as you probably noticed on the tweet, it did also include the WCC, okay? And so, look, they're just like the Big West is. They're a conference on the West Coast, okay? But it's just like I've talked about. We will see who gets discussed and who we talk about, all right? I'm sure, let's face it, these programs have other incentives or motivations to do well, far more reaching than to be discussed on here, okay? But if you want to be discussed on here, Well, you got to play your way into it in a sense, right? Like, no offense, we all know there's a few programs in both of these conferences and certainly the WCC that are not going to warrant a whole lot of discussion during the season. Okay. And the WCC is going to be up against it anyway, losing their best program. And then once that program left, they lost their best remaining, the coach of their best remaining program. They didn't get a program they thought they were going to get 2 years ago, right? So it's not been a super year and a half for the West Coast Conference, okay? Gonzaga leaving town, Randy Bennett realizing this is finally the time to try a different job on, goes home. He's from the Arizona, maybe Phoenix area, heads down to take on that task that Bobby Hurley left him there in Tempe in the Big 12. They didn't get Grand Canyon, who was for a little bit committed to them. And so they're in flux. They brought a few programs in. I don't know. Who is it? Did they bring in Cal Santa Barbara? And did they bring in Cal Irvine? Or was it UC? I don't even know who they brought in. They brought in a couple teams that will largely be competitive. I'm sure like Pepperdine brought in a new coach. They've got some players that came in. So we'll see what happens there. I don't anticipate like coming on to do shows to talk about specific, solely to talk about West Coast games. But we'll see how it goes, right? And that's another thing. Once the season hits, I mean, I know we're 7 months away, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, this year, the Mountain West schedule was very uniform. They had 0 games on Sunday, 0 games on Monday in conference play anyway, 0 Sundays, 0 Mondays, and 0 Thursdays. It was all Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So it was real easy to plan for those nights. We're in here on those nights, and that's it, right? Now, we haven't seen the schedules yet, but with the conferences split, it's very likely that we get some Thursdays. We might get some, who knows what you see, right? And so this might be a case where we kind of look at the schedule and map out and say, all right, we got 2 games tonight. We can do those, but we only have 1 this night. Let's not go on that night. We'll see, okay? I mean, I'm open to a lot of things, and we'll see how it goes. I know a lot of you guys are basketball junkies. You'll come in and watch, maybe live, maybe later. A lot of you live, which is great. But we'll have to see. Also had some questions about other conferences, and I brought that up to BJ too. So that is being discussed. Obviously, there are teams on the West Coast that belong to 3 of the 4 Power 4 conferences, okay? Nobody in the SEC, but the ACC has Cal and Stanford. We have the Big Ten with the 2 Los Angeles schools and Washington and Oregon. And then the Big 12, of course, has the 2 Arizona schools plus Colorado and Utah. So that's been discussed, okay? I think it's a case of, again, I don't know that we will come on a Friday, for example, if UCLA plays Michigan, even though that's a great game, right? I don't know that we'll come on and do a show specifically for that game. But if it's on a Wednesday night when there's 2 games in the Pac and 2 games in the Mountain West, and one of them is a crap, and that's a game that's played between schools, we'll see. All right, a lot of things to iron out yet. We'll see how it works out. But that's kind of our plan for now. Okay, so appreciate all the positive feedback that came after the announcement. I'm excited to continue doing this. And this is perfect, right? Once a week, I get to talk about stuff that's going on, get to interact with you guys. Some of you guys are in the know a little bit more about your own teams and stuff that might be going on. I'm following what I can. And, I get caught up. I might not be on top of it every second, but I get caught up. And I think I am kind of understanding of what's going on. But I like to add in my own thoughts of things, sometimes just to fire people up, but because it's what I believe. So I'm looking forward to that piece of it. And, I think this will be a good place to keep the college hoops chatter going. So, all right, that was a long-winded intro. I do want to shout out the 2 sponsors you see on the screen here. Bottom right, you see Sun Cruiser. I do have one, It's actually the same one that's been in here for quite some time now with the old Sun Cruiser. Also, want to shout out Circa because we know Circa, one of the largest sports book actually in Vegas. They have mobile betting in 6 states. including Nevada and Colorado for you guys out there in the Mountain Time Zone. So also great atmosphere. I had some friends there recently. I know BJ's been there on the stadium swim. Great spot. So check Circa out on your next trip to Vegas. Okay. Let me rip through some of these comments here, and then I'll go through my my little notepad here, right? I do things old school where I kind of write things down instead of doing everything on the computer. Let me just rip through. I got a handful of comments in here. Back like I never left. Ewok with the J. Cole and Tenet and the Lobo momentum for sure. Appreciate it, Larry. Watching from Albuquerque. Good stuff. Lewis is here. I am here. What else we got? Thank you, Mike. I'm glad you guys are all here. Yeah, definitely, Drew. So this is what I said when I don't want to shoot all the bullets tonight. It's kind of like it was a sitcom once where the guy comes up with his own business, right, about recovering golf balls. Okay, at in a pond off of a golf course where they hit balls in the water every day. And the first day or two or whatever it is, he pulls out freaking hundreds and hundreds of balls and can get some money back for him. He's like, this is the greatest thing ever, until he realizes that when he goes back the next day, there's no balls in the water because he fished them all out. Right. And so he fired all his bullets right away and he's got nothing to go back for. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't want to rip through every team and every player today because, we might get 10 commitments in the next 7 days. And then there's not as much to talk about next week. So I thought about breaking it up by conference, but I don't want to offend anybody if I go with the Pac first and tick off Mountain West people. I don't want to vice versa. So, we'll see. We'll see what comes there. Did Leon forget it was portal season or what? Well, Leon's taking a different approach. Yeah, Mike, we're going to get a multi background here. I think we're going to combine some teams on there. Yeah, Nick, there are in this way, there's teams taking different approaches right now. All right. So I definitely will talk about that. Larry, disappointed in last season's. I know a lot of Lobo fans were last season with how Olin approached his first New Mexico roster. It obviously worked out. You guys overperformed. You were that close to making the NCAA tournament. And so he's changed it up a little bit here. What do I make of the Guath movement to DePaul? Strange. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. What's the coverage breakdown by conference? Well, Josh, I'll be honest, that's going to depend on what the teams do in November and December. Okay. I'll just throw teams out here and don't read into any of this. I'm just thinking about the teams that come to my head here, right? Let's just say that Boise and CSU crap the bed in November. Okay. And UNLV and Nevada come out piping hot. Okay. Well, then they probably deserve a little more coverage, right? In addition to the stalwarts at the top that you expect to be there. Okay. So the teams that are going to get the most coverage on here are the teams that deserve it. Okay. Now, if you're playing an opponent, right? If you're Fresno and you play back-to-back Gonzaga and San Diego State, well, yeah, you'll probably get discussed on back-to-back episodes, because you're playing some of the heavyweights, right? But if you're Fresno and you play Texas State and Washington State, we might not hear from you for a week. So it's just going to depend on how the teams perform, right? Because that's just, I hate to say it like that, but I'm a front runner, right? I want to talk about the teams that deserve it. And that's kind of what we did this year, right? You didn't hear a ton of talk. Well, really, you didn't hear any talk about Air Force and very little about San Jose State. And, even though we had Vance Wahlberg on here twice and he was great, certainly not as much Fresno talk as we had about Utah State, New Mexico, and Grand Canyon and San Diego State and the teams at the top. So thanks for being here, Derek. So that's kind of Larry says the West Coast brought in UCSD. Okay. I mean, that's a fair ad. And Denver, that's right. I did know they brought in Denver, which was an odd move. Honestly, that's kind of as odd as the Mountain West bringing UC Davis, and then Cal and UCSD. Okay. Jake called deciding to return next season. Huge news for everyone. Yeah, I mean, it's great news for everybody who's not like just a Power 4 like snob, right? And only plans to watch those schools, right? Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. Providence has made some moves. GCU will definitely talk about the Lopes in a second here, Ice, 100%. Jake calls brother Dax signing as well. We got two Ices, Ice and Ice Baby. Now all we need is Ice Baby, Vanilla Ice. So the Aztec commander is no longer the Magoon commander. So you do need a name change. Do it. Do what Ice Baby says. Like and share the video. Okay. So on my notes here, I talked about the concept and the plan, the conferences, the teams, things like that. So there wasn't a ton. Let's face it, this is something that I and other people enjoy talking about almost as much as player movement is like coaching movement, right? Who's going here, who's going there, unless, of course, it's your coach. And then you get nervous, like Lobo fans were nervous about Olin bailing, right? There wasn't a ton of movement. There were a few, and I'm going to save that stuff for next week, okay? Obviously, we'll touch on a couple of the guys when we talk about some of the teams in the next 40 minutes or so. I will try to keep these to an hour. I mean, that's kind of a joke because I can never keep anything to what I expect to keep them to. But obviously we'll mention a few guys, but I'll go into a little bit more depth on them and some of the guys that left and stuff like that moving forward next week. Okay, just again, so I have something for sure to go over. Okay, now let's talk about the approaches to roster construction, because as some of the comments said, okay, yes, some of the teams have been very quiet, right? And you can see different coaches. It's like a strategy, right? It's like deciding anything else. How do you play this? What's your approach? What's your game plan? What's your philosophy? What do you believe in, right? Some teams want to be aggressive man to man, right? Some are more passive and play a pack line. The Aztecs want to get out and bother you with ball pressure, right? It's the same thing with this. How are you going to approach your roster construction? And you have a team like CSU with Coach Farouk. He's put a priority on retaining a solid core of his guys, right? And he brought back five key guys, which is better than probably anybody else, right? And as a result, so far, only reeled in one guy from the portal, and he was a D2 guy. So he's not really from the portal. He is, but when you think portal, you think guys that are like D1 transfers. Okay. Now this guy could be a player, but they haven't gotten any D1 transfers yet. Right. But they retained 5 guys who got legit minutes and we know can play at this level. Okay. Meanwhile, you have other teams that saw a lot of their roster leave, and they're picking up guys in the portal every day. And there's 2 teams that come to mind, one with a new coach, one not. Somebody mentioned it. I think it was Larry. Somebody else too. GCU. Okay. They've brought in 5 guys, and to their credit, they returned 2, maybe 3, but 2 for sure that we know can play. And they brought in 5 guys. So that's aggressive portaling by Bryce Drew. Now, I have not paid a ton of attention to them in the past as far as doing this, right? But they obviously, as fans know, and it's not well liked by some, they have the funds to do it, okay? They don't have football, which puts them like a Big East school, right? And they also have money from their university, okay? And as a result, they can go out and start grabbing these guys, right? Now, just because you didn't go out and grab 5 guys doesn't mean you don't have the money. Okay, we know San Diego State is well funded. They've brought in 2 guys. They seem to be better than average. Bear Cherry should be familiar to Mount West fans from his year at UNLV 2 years ago. The other guy, Nick Anderson, seems to be a good shooter, right? But I don't think they're breaking the bank with those 2 guys. Now, what they are probably trying to do is lock down the 2 remaining guys who have been very quiet, and that would be the 2 freshmen this year, Tay Simmons and LZ Harrington. Unless I missed something, and I don't think I have not seen them like 100% say they are staying. Haven't said anything. Now, the portal closes on the 21st, right? Today's the 19th. So I'm guessing it closes at midnight on the 21st. So basically you have 48 hours yet. If you're an Aztec fan waiting on those 2 guys, I think there's not many. I went through and looked. I think NATO's in that boat for Boise. Again, somebody in here, correct me if I'm wrong on some of these, but NATO is in that boat for Boise, kind of crickets, where he's concerned as far as what his deal is. I think there's a few guys at Gonzaga too. The Spaniard, Saint-Supéry, okay, or I'm going to call him Superi Mario because his first name's Mario. And we took the little one to her first movie a week ago, to the Mario World, Super Mario movie. So I'm going to call him Superi Mario. I don't think he's said yet, right? And there's another, I think Huff and Fogel maybe. So I don't know that there's been anything announced on those guys. It's probably like good news at this point, but who knows? Like Lobo fans probably still have trauma from 2 years ago when literally at the 11th hour, Toppin said, I'm out of here, after pretty much telling everybody in public and behind closed doors that he was going to stay. And then literally like an hour or 2 before the portal closed, he dipped, okay, and said peace. He what's that meme? The dude, peace out, right? He left, okay? And I mean, look, he got paid and he was a stud, right? But like all accounts where he was staying up until the last minute, right? So you never know. So those 2 guys in Aztec land are probably the priority right now for Dutcher and the staff. So I get the frustration. I've seen a little bit of it on social media from Aztec fans. What are we doing? Are we going to grab anybody? Do we have any players? And I get it. There's plenty of players in the portal. There will be new guys added in the next 48 hours, I'm sure. Now, I don't really know why you would wait at this point, right? Like dudes were saying 3 weeks ago before the portal was even open, their intentions to enter the portal, all right? So I don't know anymore why you would wait at this point. Maybe somebody here can give me their thoughts on why you would wait if you're going to enter. I mean, unless you legit don't know. But again, like you've been having conversations. You've been having conversations with the staff. You've been having conversations with your people and your handlers and your buddies and your teammates and dudes from other schools that and everybody else, your agent, everything, right? So I find it hard to believe that you don't know. Maybe there's 1 out of 20 that can't make up his mind, but you got to figure it out. You got to figure it out, right? So I don't know. I don't know. Okay, let me see if what's okay. Yeah, Larry. GCU definitely has the most money. Yeah, 100%. Oh, minus Gonzaga. Yeah. They certainly do. Yeah, no, don't count out Dutch. And here's the other thing too. That was never I would say 3 years that this has been a complete circus now. And it only gets worse every year, right? Basically free agency and the money just goes up and up and up every year. But this has just become like basically in the last year, the phenomenon, which even if / when the guys in the portal dry up and you're like, oh man, there's no guys left. Who are we going to get? We're in trouble, blah, blah, blah. Even when that happens, you still have that like trump card of the foreign guys. Okay. That was never a thing at this level to the extent that it is now until like the last year or so. And there's unlimited guys over there. Unlimited. There's freaking 30 leagues, 30 countries, probably. That's a guess, but at least 30 countries in that Eastern Europe, Russia, Central Europe, wherever, with plenty of players. Okay. Now, are they all willing to? No, you're not going to get the top guys, but basically anybody who is not making the money that they can make here is open to coming over. In all likelihood, a better experience, lifestyle. Certainly, I'm not going to mention countries, but go look at some of them compared to going to play in San Diego or, Phoenix, Arizona, or most places, okay, compared to being in, cities or towns that are not third world, but not exactly thriving, okay? So that's like an ace in the hole. And I know that's not been a part of certainly it's not, as an example, it's not been a part of San Diego State's recruiting profile. Okay. But what's to say it can't be moving forward? Okay. So if that wasn't on the table, then I'd have a little more cause for concern for some of the teams that are behind the 8 ball here. Okay. But with that always on the table to get guys, it's not like there's a list there. Those guys aren't in the portal. Those guys are signed for a team. It's just like soccer. You go poach somebody from another league and you pay them and that's it. That's basically what this is, right? Josh says, does the new Pac-12 refine Gonzaga's team or season more than WCC did or could, which may mean better shot for deeper runs more consistently? I would expect so. Now, what will be interesting, Josh, is how they schedule non-con moving forward here, right? Because they've been very, very aggressive in the last 10, 15 years. I was never a Gonzaga expert. Okay. We'd have to have our buddy Dan Dickow on, and maybe, Dan will be a guest at some point in moving forward here. And we could all look it up, but certainly a large number of like top flight non-con games all through the season, because few knew that once January and February came, he was basically playing 2, and then depending on the year, 3 or 4 games that he even had to show up to coach in. All right. Now I say that largely kidding because it's college and you got to, but let's be honest. They're 30-point favorites against the teams at the bottom of that league in the last decade. They rotate who they are: Portland, Pepperdine, Pacific, Loyola Marymount. They've all had their turn at the absolute pit of that league. Okay. San Diego, how can I forget there? Lavin finally was put out to pasture and they got somebody new in there with improved facilities. And so they'll be competitive in that league here moving forward. But it's like all you have to do is like make sure your guys are not food poisoned and awake, and you're going to win 80% of your games in the league just by showing up. You don't even have to play well, right? And so as a result, he's scheduled like super aggressively in a non-con. UConn, Kentucky, players era, this, that, and it's fantastic. I don't know that that's going to take place moving forward to the same extent. I think that's probably burning your guys out, because now he's going to play San Diego State twice and Utah State twice and Boise and CSU. So interesting question there. Tater Tom, how screwed is Leon and company? Portal season has been. What the hell just happened there? Frightening. Okay. He's laid down the Magoon sword, but not the Aztec one. Well, appreciate that. That's a good fan. Bear Cherry, good offensively, defensively not as good. I mean, look, he only played a handful of games this year for Sacramento State because he got injured. Clearly, he's got a high floor. He had some very good games, and then sometimes it just looked like he was going through the motions out there. Now, that could have been, as you guys that listened to me before this season, that could have been a Kevin Kruger issue. Yes, based on UNLV, that could have been a Kevin Kruger issue, right? Yeah, Nick, I missed that, but that's what I said. Yeah. What's up, Steinbauer? How are you? Good to see you here. Yeah, so, I mean, look, who knows? But he's got upside and he can play. So he's a guy who, will he take to Dutcher's coaching? You never know, right? Yeah, Larry, off topic. Little Patino is on a big shopping spree. I've seen Richard's gotten some players. I mean, that's what he needs to do, right? Like Richard he's a fantastic recruiter. It didn't work out this year for him at Xavier because he didn't have the players. I've long said now that Richard wins because he gets good players. There's very few games that Richard wins when he doesn't have the better talent on the floor. Okay. So Boise's in the mix for a center from Gonzaga. Is that right? I did not see that. I saw the JUCO guy that they grabbed last night. So I'll talk about that in 1 second. Derek has heard that San Diego State is going for a couple Europeans. Yeah, exactly. And so that's the ace up the sleeve of these guys now, because it's just like anything else. This, it's a copycat league. It's not even a league. It's a copycat sport, right? And it's just like, teams in football adopting the run and shoot or the wildcat or different things that are all the rage. Somebody succeeds at it. You'd be stupid to not kind of take it and put your own spin on it. Well, teams want to go get guys from Europe. What did Olin do? He grabbed Bullion, right? I'm sure there's plenty of others that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. Few got, Super Mario, right? So you got to do this stuff, and you'd be foolish to not. So there you go. Thanks, Nathaniel. Good to have you here. The Cherry family is from San Diego. I did see somebody comment on that on social media. Okay, so let's talk about some of these. Let's talk about teams doing that. I don't know why that keeps doing that. Like I said, I'm on my secondary computer. I will get the audio figured out on my first computer next week. So we'll be back on that one because I never had that issue before. It's starting to scare me that it's going to kaput at any moment. But anyway, I want to it's easy for me to say don't panic, right? When you're the fan of a specific team, it's a lot easier to panic when you see every other team or most other teams scarfing guys up left and right, and you're like, well, what are we doing, right? You got to trust that your coach and your staff has a plan that is going to come together for your team. Right? It may take a little bit longer. It may be a different route than you're used to, but you got to trust them, right? It's your coach, it's your program. Unless you think that he's a horrible coach and whatever, well, then obviously you don't have to trust him. Then you might just sit there and say, well, we're screwed, and we are what we are. Okay, but assuming you're on board with your coach, look, you got to trust him, because I know I'm kind of all over the place with the schools here, but like Utah State, for example, all right? Haven't mentioned the Aggies yet. Ben Jacobson comes in, and the big news here is that they retain Templin and then Falslev. Huge, okay? If they wanted to keep three guys that had eligibility, it was Templin, Falslev, and El Amin, who followed Calhoun to Cincinnati. So they kept 2 out of 3. Okay, they lost many guys to graduation. And then a couple guys that hit the portal, you just expect that today. It's fine. Okay. They have not been overly active yet. Now, he did bring one of his better players from UNI with him. Yesterday, they grabbed a point guard from Louisiana Tech, and they got a guy from Snow Junior College, which has a long history of supplanting or supplying Division I schools in your area out there with players. Okay, I don't know if he'll contribute this year or not, but he needs to find more guys. Okay, they have two red shirts, two guys coming off the red shirts. I think is it Bo or Bowie and Tosi. I don't know if Aggie fans are expecting those guys to contribute or not. I know that Jacobson missed. I hate to say he missed. He had a freshman player of the year from Wisconsin on campus, and I think he signed with Illinois over the weekend. So that was one that they were hopeful for and did not get. They got a high school guy in, I saw from, I think, the St. Louis area, who seems to be pretty solid. But again, it's a tough ask, and we had many good freshmen in the conference this year, okay? But it's a tough ask for those guys to be like key guys for you. All right. It's a pleasant surprise if and when they do work out, but I don't think you can expect them to. So Jacobson needs to, find some guys. Okay. They're going through what New Mexico went through, although it's a little better because last year when Olin came in, they had no players. Okay. Literally no players. At least the Aggies have a few here. Okay. But as Larry said earlier, Lobo Nation was not thrilled a year ago with Olin and his recruiting. And I kind of sense that developing here with Jacobson at Utah State. All right. Clearly, they have a very good foundation to work with where Falslev is concerned and Templin. Okay. But there is work to do. There's work to do. Okay. And I guess this is a good time. I created a little game here. I don't have the graphics to fully implement the game, but the Bates get for Utah State yesterday. Okay, I think it's AJ Bates, right? AJ Bates from Louisiana Tech, and the Hornseth guy is from Northern Iowa. So Louisiana Tech point guard Bates rings a bell. First thing I thought of, and I saw a comment from an Aztec fan on one of the posts, was that's where Newman came from last year, right? And when Newman signed, that was a great get, right? Not just, and I'm not, this is not a dig at Aztec fans. This is the media and the recruiting guys and the people that follow the sport that said what a great get it is for Dutcher and the Aztecs. Sean Newman, led blah, 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 and assists and this and that and this and that. Okay. If you go back and listen to my pods from last summer or early preseason before I was doing this here, I was not sold on Newman. And so Bates could be different, but it's the same mold as Newman, right? And so what it led me to think of was, and I see this, and I appreciate the people that say this because, it drives me nuts. And this is why I hardly comment on any of the transfers, because every transfer is great. Every transfer is going to be a freaking stud, right? That's what people think. Okay. Every transfer is this and this and this and this, right? It doesn't work like that. Okay. Not at all. Some do, some don't, right? Some do, some don't. And so I put together a list, and I broke it down into two lists really, because there's a handful of guys from this past season. And I hate to say I'm not. Why is that doing that? I feel like that's happening longer and longer every time it happens, and I'm worried that at some point it's just going to kaput out. Driving me nuts. Okay, this is first night troubleshooting. We'll be back. Anyway, so when these guys signed, in the last 12 months, last summer, spring, whatever, They were going to be huge for their team, right? And it didn't work out that way, okay? I already mentioned Newman. He's one. How about Nas Cunningham for UNLV, right? He was an Alabama recruit and a McDonald's All-American. He was going to be a stud for UNLV. No, okay? That's two. How about, Lobo fans, a double dose for you guys? Kevin Patton. Now, that was more off-court stuff, but, still didn't work out. And certainly Antonio Chol, right? He was like an All-American JUCO guy, and he started the season okay. I was critical of him because all he wanted to do was shoot threes, and then the well dried up because he was scouted, and our coaching is good, and he just flattened out from there. And he was a big reason why the Lobo, I hate to pin it on him, but why the Lobos didn't make the tournament. They needed another bullet in the chamber, and it was supposed to be Chol, and it didn't work out. And then Dusty Stromer. GCU gets Dusty Stromer, a guy who got minutes for Gonzaga and who was a Gonzaga recruit. Oh, man, this is great. The guy can shoot. It just never worked for Dusty Stromer. So you get these guys, and everybody thinks that because they put like decent stats or you can watch a highlight or two on them that they're going to be great. I mean, it doesn't work like that, right? Like, guess what? Anybody can put a highlight tape together that goes for a minute or two that has a handful of good plays on it. Like when you are a coach and you get videos and emails and stuff all the time from players, at lower levels, right? Like when you're at a higher level, you're actively recruiting these guys. But when you're at lower levels, you get tapes all the time from guys. Hey, here's my tape, blah, blah, blah. Anybody can put a highlight tape together, right? I mean, if you can't, you probably haven't played. You can show a couple shots that you made or a nice pass or taking a charge or a block. Anybody can put a tape together, right? It doesn't mean that you're a winning player. It doesn't mean that you fit within the system. It doesn't mean you're a good teammate. It doesn't mean you take good shots, right? Or you can, what happens to the 4 shots that you missed around the highlight that you clipped onto that video, right? And so, you got to think about that too. So here was the game I created. Now, you guys that are fans of the respective schools are going to remember these guys, but I'm curious how many of you that are not fans of said team are going to remember. So I don't have any graphics here. This reminds me of, and I don't watch the NBA anymore, but when I used to watch it 20 years ago, Barkley and those guys on TNT had a segment that, because how Barkley talks, he just cuts words off. And there we go. That was brief. Okay. Yeah, Nick, Chol, 0 points in 6 of his last 8 games. No bargain. I will talk about Darling in a minute to GCU. So who he play for. So I'm curious, and I want you guys to be honest, if you can remember the guys and who he played for. So I'm going back 3 years because really I think that's when this all began with the complete free agency, right? The portal numbers didn't get up that high 3 years ago, but the last 3 seasons, these guys played in the last 3 seasons in the Mountain West. There's 9 of them, okay? And so if it's not a guy from your team, I want you to be honest with how many you can tell me where they played, okay? Because all of these guys were big hit guys when they signed with their school, okay? First one is Dante Allen, okay? Dante Allen. So I'm going to rip through them, and then I'll come back in a minute, and I'll say where they went to school. Next is Jay Powell. Jay Powell. I feel like I'm reading off a bingo card here. Next, we'll go with Alban Gadaretse. Alban Gadaretse. Next is Roddy Anderson. Next, we'll go with Atike, Ali Atike. Then we'll go Tylen Pope. Then we'll go Dylan Anderson. Then we'll go Isaac Mushila. And then we round it out with Brandon Love. Okay? So there's 9 guys I just read off right there. All right? Sick, what's up? Long-time viewer. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I'm happy I'm doing it too. So I just read off 9. Nick, you got 4 of them. Okay. And as a Lobo fan, you're out of the running for a couple of them. So not bad. But my point being, and I'll go through and I'll read them off to you guys. Okay. Those guys Yeah, sick. Obviously, you knew that. Yeah. All of those guys came in with big accolades, was my point for doing that. Okay. So Dante Allen was a Wyoming guy 2 years ago. I want to say last year, but last year was the one that just ended a month ago. So 2 years ago, Dante Allen came to Wyoming, Sonny's first year. He was a Kentucky recruit and had played at Kentucky. Okay. And just never fit. Didn't know how to play within the system and blah, blah, blah. Right. That was Dante Allen. Jay Powell, he's one of the older guys on here. He was 3 years ago at San Diego State. Came in the year after he went to the Final Four, came from Campbell, had big numbers at Campbell. He was going to be like a Keyshawn Johnson replacement, right? Yeah, Larry. Okay. Got when the screen does that or not, but thankfully it's only doing it for 3 seconds. Jay Powell never materialized, right? As Larry says, Gatoretse was 2 years ago. He was on Calhoun's first team at Utah State. 6'10", 6'11 guy from somewhere in the A-Sun, in the Atlantic Sun. Can't even remember where. He was okay, but he got pushed around and, he was a starting center and, And then, yes, as Six said, the two Boise guys, the Anderson brothers, not related, but the Andersons, Roddy 3 years ago and Dylan 2 years ago. Roddy, did Roddy just transfer from Xavier? Where did he end up? I forget. He certainly not what Boise expected out of Roddy. Wasn't a good fit. Wasn't a good fit, as Six said. Actually, Six just said it wasn't a good fit. Oh, that was it. Yeah, I figured you would get a kick out of that one. He had a block that won the game against San Jose State. Yeah, I forgot about that. But now that you mention it, yeah, I do remember that. But and then Dylan Anderson was a 7-footer 2 years ago for Boise that I believe came from Arizona. And, Leon started him at the beginning of the year, and then he couldn't even play him by the halfway point. So he was a nothing. Two Lobos on there, as Larry said. The 2 years ago was Atiki, AAA, the motor service. Ali Atiki came from BYU, built like a Greek statue, never got it done. The one that probably is the least memorable of any of these guys was Mushila, Isaac Mushila. That was 3 years ago. That was, I guess, the team that won the conference tournament and got to the big dance for Richard with Mashburn and House. But Mushila came in from the Southland Conference with like a double accolades, and he couldn't even see the floor. And then the last two are Nevada guys. Brandon Love was 2 years ago. He started the season like a house on fire. I forget where he came from. Maybe it was actually Texas State, I think. I might be wrong, but I think it's Texas State. He came from there, started to look like a heck of a player on the warm-up lines, right? Had a good start to the season and then just petered out. And the same thing, Tylen Pope. I'm sure nobody remembers Tylen Pope. He was 3 years ago. Decent game, but came in from Tulane with good numbers. I think Tulane. And same thing, like he just was not, he didn't get a lot of minutes by the end of the season, right? So my point for going over all that is the fact that like all these guys that everybody's all jacked up about now, anytime and I get it, the coach has to do it, right? In here, okay? So you have to do it as a coach. And the players excited and the recruiting people or the people on social media are going to tout it too. I get it. You have to do that, right? But they're not all winners. They're not all winners. Okay? Just keep that in mind, right? When some of these schools are piling guys up and you're not, it's okay because they're not all winners. All right. Okay. Now, I wanted to go for an hour. I'm at 55 minutes. I do want to talk about some of the teams here. And I said I wanted to save some of the bullets for next week. I'm hopeful that we get more news about some of this stuff. So certainly what I can talk about is some of the movement from guys that we've seen leave. All right. Who do we see? Well, let's start at the top here with, because somebody mentioned it before, with the Aztecs, as they lost 3 guys to the Big East themselves, including Guath, who, surprising, right? We don't know what motivates these guys and what their ultimate decision is. I think the fallback for all of us is to say that it's money. Obviously, that plays a big role. Guath everybody thought he was going to go to Kentucky. So to end up at DePaul is surprising. We don't get the full story often. Did Kentucky pull the plug, right? And say, we don't, you know what? We're only going to, and by pull the plug, I mean, we'll take you, but we're only going to give you half of X, right? X was Guath's asking price. They say, we'll give you half of X. Well, then, that gives you pause. And DePaul ups the offer. It's a home run for DePaul. They were awful until this past season. They have a seemingly finally have a good coach in place. They made good strides. They were very competitive in the Big East this year. Not close to a tournament bid, but far better than they have been recently. And here's a guy who's got massive upside. We all know it didn't pan out this year, whether it's a mental thing with the injury. Certainly there were some physical issues too. Maybe it just didn't gel in the locker room. Who knows the deal? But get a fresh start, get paid. You can be the centerpiece. He's still a very talented guy, right? We've seen when he's freaking hitting those shots from 25 feet, it just looks like he's playing at an 8-foot rim at a carnival, right? So he's got upside. I know that the easy thing is for us to say, well, man, why did, right? Because they're not as good of a program as San Diego State. They're not, okay? Not a knock on Magoon. It's not a knock on Dutcher and the staff. Sometimes, it's just the best thing for everybody involved, okay? And so certainly, it caught a lot of us off guard when you see DePaul. Really, DePaul? Who knows? Okay, so I'm not sure, and frankly, nothing will surprise me this year. What he does. He could be an all Big East guy, or he could play 14 minutes a game and miss 8 games with a couple different ailments. And that's I wouldn't be surprised either way. Looks like Bird found a good landing spot at Providence. That guy's certainly making waves. Literally, I guess they call him the White Shark. I guess, he did a very good job at Arkansas State. Probably could have or should have, even if it would have only been for 1 year, been at UNLV, but they seemed to fumble that a year ago. Instead, he went to South Florida, made the NCAA tournament, and now he's up in the Big East at Providence. They seem to have money up there. He's got a few players in, and they seem to be right back in the mix as a second-tier Big East team. I mean, we can't consider anybody a top-flight Big East team as long as Pitino and Hurley are coaching in that conference. Like, it just is what it is, okay? Anybody else is playing for, like, Tier 2, right? Villanova, Marquette was awful this year. Creighton's going to go through a transition with McDermott retiring. They weren't even very good this year. So, like, that second tier is open for anybody, and certainly could be Providence. And then who else? Oh, BJ. Did BJ go to Creighton or what? I can't remember off the top of my head. Did he go to Creighton? Somebody, Providence. Yeah, Providence has good history. Billy Donovan played there. I remember as a youngster watching. Well, that's where Pitino coached, of course. And that's where it was rumored that Richard was going to go before, when if things happened a year later. Yeah, BJ to Creighton. Yeah, I'm losing track of stuff here. BJ to Creighton. They brought in a couple guys too. The coach there is well respected. They'll be okay, and I think BJ will probably put up good numbers there. And then Compton went to Oregon, and so we'll see what happens with the Goreville. I know there's been some UNLV chatter there, but who else moved? Who else? split out and signed with somebody. Let me see. I wanted to hit on a couple of those. Oh, one. Thank you. Okay. All right. And Cadulis went to Western Michigan. Heidi is in the portal yet, but he hasn't signed anywhere. Yeah, a lot of them did go to the Big East. Compton and Meadow to Oregon, too. I did see that. Yes, Meadow to Oregon. Interesting. No. They were bad this year. That was one of his worst seasons, Dana Altman. He's getting a little long in the tooth. He might's probably not long for the this college portal world anymore. But worried that Olin hasn't brought in a true post if he could have success playing small ball. Well, I will say that with the league switching around a little bit, Jer, the lack of size is probably not as important, right? I don't think the league will be littered with the most physical teams. So if he doesn't get a true post guy, yes, I think they'll be okay, much more than they would have been this year had they been that way. And yes, Larry, you're correct. The asking prices for these big men are out of control. You don't even have to be good, and part of it's terrible that, not a lot of good big men right now around in the West, okay, on rosters. But these coaches, or I don't even say the head coach, the assistants, right? Like, they're the ones on the hook for this stuff, okay? Like, people point to the head coach saying, oh, he whiffed. Who do you think are making these connections and trying to, whatever with these guys? It's the assistant coaches. That's their job. And so if you miss on a guy or two and you see that list shrink a little bit, man, you feel the pressure to get somebody. And sometimes you just get somebody for the sake of getting somebody because you want to get somebody, and he's not the greatest get. So that kind of plays into it as well. Fielder is still in the portal. I saw BJ putting out some of the places he was going to. I think Washington, Alabama, and Nebraska. Was that accurate? Fielder's still in the portal. And Buchanan, to West Virginia. Don't even know if he'll be able to play or not. Bouillon to Maryland. So that was an interesting one. And I think that might be it for there. Did I want to talk about any? So there is one team. Yeah, I doubt he's going to return because of the asking price. I don't know how. Mid-major coaches need to wait until the players and their agents start asking for less. Yeah, but the problem is, like Jared, it's like at some point this bubble is going to burst, but it might. This one will come back in 2 seconds. There we go. Okay, at some point, these donors and these millionaires, unless they just completely are billionaires, they're going to get tired of donking off $5 million a year for their team to go 18-15 and not make the tournament or lose in the first round. Is that not going to get tiresome at some point, right? If you watch Pony XS, right? The great documentary on SMU football from the 80s, right? And those guys were just paying players when it was illegal. Okay, now it's legal, but when it was illegal, all those schools down there in the Southwest were paying players to come there, right? Because it was football, and all they wanted to do was beat their rival, and that's all they cared about. So if they went 9-2 at SMU and they beat Texas A&M and they beat Houston and they beat the schools in their area, that's all they cared about. But is that what these donors care about now? They care about beating their rival. I just don't know how long it's going to last where they're willing to keep shelling this kind of money out for a first round NCAA tournament loss, like the BYU experience, right? I just don't know how long that's sustainable. Okay. I just don't know, but it's going to last. It's not going to end in the next 4 weeks. So these guys are going to get paid this year. Maybe, Jer, there's a little bit of a trickle down where once all the money goes, then there's not enough left this year. So maybe that's what you can hope for, I guess, right? I just don't know. Yeah, for sure. I mean, mid-major have the fatigue. Yeah, I mean, imagine the emotions of Lobo fans, within what, 6 days of Hall putting in the portal and then coming back. I mean, there were guys who were off the ledge and then they came right back in with, jumping in 2 feet head first, 5 days later. So, yeah, but this is what I've said. You just have to be okay with it. Like, part of me, I don't want you guys to do it because I want you here to engage and watch and whatever, right? But part of me says, some people should just shut it off and come back in November like you used to do 20 years ago, right? When college basketball ended in March for most teams, and in the first week in April with the Final Four, that was it. You'd have a few coaches moving around. And then in October, you'd go pick up your preseason magazines to remember, and this may be 30 years, but even 20 years ago, you'd pick up your magazine and say, oh, they got him. I forgot they have him. They have him. They have him. And that was it. You bring in a freshman, maybe he's good, whatever. That's it. And so, but I get it. There's a lot of time in there to fill in a lot of voids to fill in to do that, right? But maybe that's best for some people because it's quite a ride. It's quite a ride. Boise should not pay for fielders, 6 says. Aarons was target number 1 for you. So let me talk about Boise quickly. They did keep Aarons and Carmichael, okay, but their roster certainly is thin right now. He got that JUCO guy yesterday. He got an inside presence from a SWAC school. Now, the SWAC is horrible, but I do like the fact that he doesn't seem to care if he scores. Excuse me, he seems to be a defensive presence, blocking shots, rebounding, etc. I think that's good. And then who was Boise's other addition? They got a third guy too. I can't remember who it is. I'm trying to look, see if I have it over here anywhere. Oh, they got the guy from North Dakota or North Dakota State, the 3 initial guy. That's what I'm going to call him, Damari Wheeler-Thomas, DWT. He's going to be known as DWT on here. He seems to be a scorer, and I'm sure there's more guys to come. But if and he needs more guys. They need the decision of NATO. He's okay, but he's not going to solve all your problems. But if you have stand back inside, the JUCO guy by the name of Jacani Diang, and then Wheeler-Thomas as your scorer with Carmichael as your Robin. I don't think he's a Batman guy. And if Aarons can develop, you have a nice core. But you need a couple more guys. Okay? I did want to mention, because I haven't talked about them yet, Oregon State. And I'll talk about them more next week because I did it intentionally, not because I dislike Oregon State, because I'll get on board, especially if they produce a winning program. But I said I was going to wait until next week with the coaching stuff. New coach, okay? Now, they have been more active than anybody with the exception of GCU. And I think it's a 5-5 haul, okay? And it seems to be a pretty decent haul for Oregon State, all right? Sometimes that's what you need. You need a change at the top, right? Wayne Tinkle had been there for a while, made a miraculous run to the Elite Eight. He had nothing else to show for anything. Now they bring this guy in here, Joyner, Justin, I believe, from Michigan as an assistant. So that counts for something, all right? And now in a week-ish, maybe a little more. So he's got 5 guys here, 2 of whom we should be maybe even 3 or maybe even 4 that we should be familiar with, okay? Legend Smiley from San Francisco, so the West Coast Conference, seems to be a pretty good three-point shooter, right? 42% from 3, made 55 threes. I don't know about the rest of his game. Couldn't pick him out of a line if he walked in my room right now here with a jersey that said Smiley on the back, okay? But, shooter, okay? Jackson Rasmussen from Idaho. And these guys were both freshmen too. So they put up good numbers for freshmen, right? Rasmussen scored, 15 a game. Didn't shoot it super. 32% from 3 is not great. But 5 rebounds a game. Put up good numbers for an Idaho team that made the NCAA tournament. All right. So seems to be a good addition. Then the ones that we are certainly familiar with, Deshaun Gorey, who I raved about this year from Fresno, also scored double figures and put up big rebounding numbers too. Did not shoot it great, to put it mildly. Made 33s, 27%. Not super, okay? But he's got a good mid-range, good floater, good athlete, can finish at the rim, and he was only a freshman. Maybe he listed as, I think he's a young guy. I really like Gorey. All right, so there's a good wing scorer for Oregon State. Now, there are other two also a lot of us are familiar with. Staten was a guy at BYU, and I believe he's from the Vegas area, okay? So UNLV was in on him a couple times. He was hurt, did not play a lot this year. Looks the part. We'll see if he can contribute next year. And then the fifth guy is Dennis Evans from GCU. Now, really, those two seem to be the same guy for me, Evans and Staten, okay? You're not going to play those two guys at the same time. Now, I guess it's insurance in case one of them gets hurt or one of them just bombs, okay? It's good insurance. You know, you'd certainly rather have two than one, but they're not going to play at the same time, all right? You know, you're not running plays for Dennis Evans, okay? But, you know, as we watch this year, but he can certainly swat anything in his vicinity. And again, we'll see if he can improve his game or not. But on paper, a very good start. And I should also add that they bring back their leading scorer, Josiah Lake. Don't know much about him, didn't watch them, but he shot 38% from three, made one a game, didn't make a ton, but, you know, can score the ball, 46% from the field, 82% from the line, about 4 rebounds a game, 4+ assists a game. So solid start for Joyner. Now, the only pause I will put on it is that come on now. All right, here we go. So he's never been a head coach before, right? He may be great. Everybody's got to start somewhere, right? But you don't know. He's done a great job bringing talent in. I'm sure he had a good hand in Michigan's success, bringing in talent, okay? But we'll see how he is in the number one chair as a head coach, okay? We'll see. Could go great, could go not so great, right? Stand back. Yeah. I like those kind of guys. I know everybody wants the scores, but you need the other pieces too, right? You need the guys that are going to be your glue guys that don't need plays run for them, that will go get stuff off the glass and be a defensive presence like Omar Stanley was like 3 years ago for Boise. Not 2 years ago, but 3 years ago. Yeah, I don't know a lot about Mays. I know he was at UCSD, didn't see them a lot. 1 year for him at UNM. So you think he'll be good enough that he can be a guy that ladders up next year then. Yeah, for sure. Gorey was just, you know, Oregon State has done a damn good job in the portal. Yeah, I mean, look, like if Joyner knows what he's doing on the bench, right? You know, like it's weird because all these guys like Olin, Sprinkle, Calhoun, these guys all had been head coaches before, okay? And so, you know, we know that the deal with Olin turning UCSD into, you know, a great D1 program from D2, but I don't know how he did his first year there, right? Same thing with Calhoun at Fairmont State at the D2 level, or Sprinkle wherever he started. I don't know what these guys did in their first year. It's tough. Coach Farokmanesh had some growing pains this year as a first-year head coach. Okay, you can be the greatest coach in the world, and it's tough when you're in charge for the first time. Okay, so, but if he can not suffer stuff, they should be then right now a top half team. No doubt about it. Okay. But we'll see. And we're never going to know that until November and December. Okay. It doesn't even, they could bring in 4 more guys of this level and it's the same thing because we're not going to know until he coaches the game or several games. How does he handle the last few minutes? How does he handle guys that are not playing within the system? How are you going to handle things at practice, locker room issues, blah, 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 playing time. Okay. It's all fun and games until the lights are on and you're at the under 4 in a one. All right, here we go. Okay. I'm going to get out of here in a few minutes because it's been an hour and 15. It's amazing. So I did keep a lot of stuff in the chamber for next week because I wanted to talk about Wyoming because they retained a lot too, like their border war foe in CSU. The Cowboys retained a lot. So excited for Sundance. He needs to add a few pieces yet, but they have a good core. GCU has gone the Oregon State way. Okay. And yes, I guess the prize piece so far for them would be Dylan Darling from St. John's. Obviously, if the guy is good enough to start most of the season for St. John's and be on the floor in a tie game in the second round of the NCAA tournament against Kansas, forget about the fact that he made the buzzer beater, okay? The fact that he was on the floor in a tie game with 10 seconds left against Kansas in a round of 32 should tell you all you need to know there, okay? Now, I'm not saying that, you're going to expect Darling to come in and score average 19 points and 8 assists and whatever, okay? But I would trust Rick Pitino more than probably any other coach in the country on a one-game basis, okay? Maybe Hurley's up there. I don't know. But that's good enough for me that he was on the floor in that situation, okay? So you got to like that right now, right? Number 1 for GCU with Darling. And they got some other pieces too. So I'll touch on them next week. Obviously, didn't talk a lot of New Mexico either. They, Hall, massive. Hall's brother, we'll see. I think you have to look at that as like a freebie, right? If he provides you anything at all, it's a plus. You got Hal back, and Hal will take over the role of Haupt, which he kind of started in this year before he got hurt. You don't need both of those guys on the floor, but Haupt is gone. You can bring in Hal now. He knows Olin. He and Olin are, he's like a coach on the floor. You have Tannett as your point. You have a stud in Hall. I don't know a lot about him, but you bring in Mays, which is, seemingly liked by Lobo Nation. And then you're going to try and strike it with some of these foreign guys. So quickly, you got Schuk. I think he's Austrian, 6. Sujanovic from St. John's, foreigner. And then Tunde Valberg Fasasi. I believe he's Swedish, but we're going to go with TVF. Again, the old 3 initial guy. William and Mary transfer. I mean, I don't know. He's one of those guys. He seems like, I hate to say it, like a prime candidate to not work out. Just total guess by me. And I'm sure they're not done, right? I forgot, Nick. I mentioned Bouillon to Maryland. Forgot about Rock to Kansas State. Rock out. But, Albury was out of eligibility. And Bouillon, Rock, and Chol. No landing place for Chol yet, but I don't really think anybody wanted him back. So, you have a nice core there to start with. Tannett 1, Hall 2, Hal at the 3, or Hall at the 4 if they go small, Mays at the 3, and then you need a big. I'm sure he'll probably find another foreigner, let's be honest, right? Or you just take a guy. The problem is and this will be my last thought here for tonight. The problem is a guy like JT Rock, when he came to New Mexico last year, that's the kind of guy that you could get money-wise. But even he, at a player like Rock was last year, is going to command money. And he doesn't deserve it. I hate to say it. But last year, JT Rock did not deserve that kind of money. He hadn't proved anything. He didn't play at Iowa State. So why does he deserve that money? It's like the guys when they draft people in the NBA and they draft on potential. Like, I guess you can do that in the NBA. You can't do that when you're a mid-major. You need guys to play. So, like, a New Mexico can't afford to throw bags of cash at a guy like JT Rock, who JT Rock was a year ago, because he's unproven. Now, he had a pretty decent season for New Mexico. He did. And I would have taken him back. But he could get paid by a Big 12 team, and so he did. But I just don't know who you're going to find now. You're going to find a guy just like Rock was last year. And he might have to get more minutes than Rock got this year. Unless you can go get another bullion, from Europe, really, I think. Okay. So there's lots of stuff to shake out yet. Okay. There's lots of stuff to shake out. I didn't hit on either of the Silver State schools, UNLV and Nevada. Didn't talk a lot either about some of the top schools, in the pack. Okay, so again, I wanted to hold some bullets in the chamber until next week. So again, if you joined in late, thanks for being here. We're gonna get some banner poster type of decorations for the wall with some logos of our teams on it. We got the sponsors on there, Sun Cruiser, appreciate them. Circa, if and when you're headed to Vegas at any point in the next few months, make a trip to Circa, largest sports book in Vegas, mobile betting, great pool scene, guys trips, whatever it is, they got it. Head out and see the fine folks at Circa. Appreciate them, and Sun Cruiser, of course, being along for the ride. So I can't believe this was an hour and 20 minutes. But again, look, thrilled to be back doing this. Appreciate all you guys being here. Follow the news, and then we'll wrap it up on the weekend. So let's just plan same bat time, same bat channel every Sunday for the time being. So stay alert to the Twitter feed or the YouTube channel. So I believe the same link works as we had it before, even though I think it changed. As weird as that sounds, I think the link changed, but the old one will work. We did change the name, as Lonzo pointed out. An athletic club of Boise. Is that one of your private clubs, Sick? Or is that where you're at right now? You enjoying a beverage at the athletic club in Boise? Absolutely. So if I didn't even do this at the top, I was too worried about getting all the other things out there, the pleasantries and everything else. If you have not done so, please subscribe to the channel. That slowed down. Obviously, that slowed down once the season ended, and we weren't pushing it at all. But now that we're back, let's get those subscriptions up, push those subscriptions, spread the word, get it out there, get subscribed, get on the network, okay, under the BNN banner. We are another night out west. Now, there was no ad or there was no intro and outro for this week because, again, this came together. You got a pro soccer team, Athletic Club Boise. Oh, nice. Very cool. Awesome. All right, World Cup in a couple months. I'll follow the World Cup. That's the extent of my following there. So, again, this came together just here in the last few days, really, and that's why we don't have the graphics yet, no banner yet behind me, no ad at the beginning. We'll put all that together, as I said at the top. Maybe some type of nice little graphic on the screen here for a rundown with topics, stuff like that. And that's kind of the extent of everything. So super appreciative to all of you guys for coming in. Thanks for bearing with those little 2-second glitches with the screen. I have to fix the audio on my main computer and get that thing set up. But otherwise, We're going to head out of here. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy your week. And again, we'll see you back next Sunday here on another night out west. See ya.